I know you guys have been waiting all afternoon to talk about grief and mourning. So before I begin, I really want you guys to take a moment to think of someone you love with all your heart. Through my artwork, I explore the process of bereavement by creating collages and book structures. This started when I was 8. My grandfather, who was my very best friend, died. The adults around me were heartbroken at his sudden death. Even in their shock and awkwardness, they had the forethought to provide me, an 8-year-old child, with glue, magazines, and scissors. I learned to be fully present in those sobering moments of youthful innocence about death, but I refused to lose my sense of wonder. This art practice cultivated a really unique outlet about the conflicts that change and loss prompt. I had no idea how well these skills would serve me. Over a 5-year period, starting in 2005, my remaining grandparents, my father, my youngest brother, several uncles, and my mother died. That heartbreak, of course, made me start to focus more on bereavement. And bereavement made me focus on creating more artwork. And then showing it in the public sphere and sharing it with people. Grievers, grieving people, were continually coming up to me, and still do, during my art shows, confused by trying to intellectualize their ideas and their experiences about death and not finding relief. Through working with them, I began to realize that my discomfort was not with death itself, but with what I started to notice as a grief avoidant behavior and cultural norm. Grief is the conflicting feelings caused by the end or change in a normal pattern. It is normal, natural, and painful, internal reaction to loss of any kind. While mourning is the external expression of that loss. Many people experience multiple losses over the course of a lifetime. A death, a move, an illness or disability, a job loss. But the one thing I want you to take away from today is that mostly it is a loss of some aspect of self or identity. In 2002, the Wall Street Journal reported that grief avoidance and the conflicts it creates cost U.S. companies over $75 billion annually. Noticing this lack of unexpressed grief and how it entrenches conflicts into deeper stalemates, I began to ask, what can we learn from artists about the expression of grief and mourning that is different than the norm? Grief and conflict situations invite creative behavior. Research shows that creativity is a choice in operating or process and is spurred on by creating solutions to obstacles. Seems like a perfect match, right? So to research this more, rather than an MFA, which would invite play and ingenuity, I decided to take a master's degree in conflict and dispute resolution at a law school. The uncomfortability for an artist in a law school, I can't even tell you. You know, they would talk about creativity and I would be like, wait a minute, that's just a little bit of creativity. So there, very quickly, I agreed to understand the right to grieve in conflict becomes political. Conflict often involves pressure and anxiety in many different ways. Research shows and acknowledges that memories from trauma are distinct and are not the same as everyday memories. So when conflicts continue over time and then are categorized by physical and structural violence and oppression, These conflicts become attracted generationally. The folks that suffer from this then live suspended between a past that is longed for and a future that was once hoped for. Because of the way grief is processed in the brain, it can make it really difficult to put into spoken words. This is where things like ritual and other ways of expression, such as art, make this dialogue much more manageable. Social change artists encourage a visual dialogue with the viewer to understand, witness, and reconcile issues. There are really strong examples of grief and mourning in the three art movements during and between the world wars. Dadaists, the Constructionists, and the Surrealists. So from this research, and then these newly learned mediation skills and more pragmatic law skills, I began to make artwork and exercises to sort of visually support grievers. You see, one of the kindest actions that you can do for grievers is learn how to be a better companion. I'm going to repeat that. Learn how to be a better companion. And the best way to start is just quietly be there and listen. No advice, none of that stuff. Just be there for them. While also understanding that grief is not a task to be finished. It is the alteration of your very being and the continual creation of a new self. For some grievers, everything ordinary becomes full of memory. At first, this can be really overwhelming to the senses. And then these memories with each recall will change depending on the emotion or the mood at that current time. These feelings can happen with both positive and negative relationships. Grievers live between two touching circles, the one before the loss and the one after, while constantly trying to reconcile between the two. Every loss is unique and individual. Therefore, the process of grief and mourning will also be. New research explains there may be styles of grieving or temperaments. So far they've identified two, intuitive and instrumental. An intuitive griever is the folks who will express themselves by emoting. They have no problem openly talking about their feelings. They also will seek support when they need it. At the other end of the continuum, there are the instrumental grievers. I can't imagine who is an instrumental griever. They will spend more time thinking rather than feeling, preferring to sort out their problems on their very own. Often they are interested in what to do with their feelings of loss rather than talk to anybody about this stuff. I've got stuff to do. But I want to express to you there really is no wrong way to grieve. A larger problem for many grievers is that even though grief is normal and natural, the vast majority of what we learn in Western society is not. Some ideas include be strong, time will heal, don't feel bad. Aren't you over that by now? Right? Some of these things you might have heard. Everything happens for a reason. And the big one, right? Pull up your bootstraps. And many more, right? These expressions, well, let me back up here for a minute. I have a really favorite one that I want to share with you. A client shared it with me recently, and it was, hey, we're back on the market now, after her husband died. Okay, so these grief-avoidant cliches and attitudes cause grievers to be more isolated and lost, right? Like a pressure with the flame turned up, pent-up grief eventually comes flowing out in all sorts of potentially negative ways, often resulting in compounding pain and harm. Examples include deep depression, physical illness, failing relationships, addictive behaviors. And I want you to macro this out a little bit more. Riots, civil disobedience, war. This tunnel vision then transfers into a looping generational memory of these events, forever embedded with grief avoidance. Larger, armed, and traumatic conflicts, right? I can name off a few. Wounded Knee, American internment camps, and slavery, Auschwitz, Hiroshima, Vietnam, Twin Towers, Iraq, Sandy Hook, Ferguson. Sites that not only hold our attention as points in history, but also as continual grieving, collective memory, and harm. I hope that looking at my artwork allows others to consider the unspoken and hidden part grief plays in conflict. Grief avoidance leaves little room for compassion, community peace building, and the reconciliation of larger social injustice. Often we choose to remain stagnant and void in this in-between time, rather than embracing life for both its joy and its pain. The ability to be uncomfortable opens up human ingenuity and creativity. It is an unreasonable delusion to think of death and loss as optional. Mourning waits. And when loss happens, we grieve. And then we mourn. There really is no getting around it. Grief and mourning need to be recognized as the basic human rights they really are. And I have to say, for me, it is absolutely perplexing that we avoid grief and mourning, because they truly are our very best tools to relieve it. Thank you.